Hi everyone, Janey here. Welcome back to my garden. Today, Jason and I are tackling this guy. And by this guy, I mean our zigzag planter. It was a stunner this whole year. It was absolutely gorgeous. And one of the things that made it so beautiful was this purple fountain grass. This was one of the best performers in my garden this year, which is not a surprise. Here in my area, this purple fountain grass does beautifully because purple fountain grass is what's known as a warm season grass, meaning that it grows really, really well in heat, which is exactly what we have. So I actually planted these grasses in the zigzag planter last fall, about a year ago, and they were in 3-gallon pots. I let them overwinter. I did cut them back last year. I let them overwinter, and now they are absolutely huge. I would say they're probably 5 feet tall, and I just love it. I love the look of grasses in this planter. The only problem is these grasses are too big, or I should say they're too wide. They flop over a little too much. So I have other grasses that I'm planning to try out in the zigzag planter. I just want to see if, they're a little bit different shape, a little bit different size. So I want to see if they do better next year. And these guys I want to transplant. And so what Jason and I are going to be doing today is we are going to be cutting these back. We are going to be dividing them, and we are going to be transplanting, which I think is going to be a huge job. So one thing I want to make clear is about timing. My timing for when we're doing this is not exactly right. Now, there is some leeway, as there is with any gardening, but basically I don't have to cut these grasses back. I could leave them up all winter long so I can enjoy these beautiful seed heads on this warm season grass, and then cut them back in the late winter, early spring before the new growth starts. And that's what you want to do for warm season and cool season grasses, is you want to cut back before the new growth starts, because what happens is if you cut them after the new growth starts, then you'll be cutting the blades of grass and you'll have kind of like what looks like a really bad haircut on your grasses all season long. So it's really important that you cut them back before the new growth starts. Since we are going to be transplanting these today, I am going to cut them back now, which is a shame because I would really like to have this winter interest, but I think it's more important to get these established in their new spots in the ground, and so that I can get my new grasses in my zigzag planter. And I also want to plant some daffodil bulbs in my zigzag planter as well. So basically, I'm telling you all this just so you know the timing that I'm doing it right now isn't quite right, but honestly, it's fine. So I am going to be cutting them back, I am going to be dividing them, and I am going to be transplanting them. And you can basically transplant your grasses on any cool day in the spring or in the fall. I was planning to cut these back earlier this month, but because it was still warm, we still had like 90-something degree days, I decided to postpone it. And so now we're doing really good. We're kind of in the 70s, maybe a couple days in the 80s, but I think it's perfect to transplant these grasses. I also am going to divide them, and you can divide your grasses when either they start to get a little dead on the inside. I think this one is starting to get like that. They're kind of just starting to not look too good on the center, or if they're just kind of outgrowing their area, which is what they're doing right now. So I am planning to cut these back and then to divide them. Now, I don't need that many purple fountain grass in my garden, but I'm going to divide them anyway because I want to start with smaller specimens. I think that they'll do better, and then I don't have to divide them next year. So I might be composting some of these plants, but some of the divisions I am going to be transplanting into my center island. So just as a quick reminder, there are 3 different kinds of grasses, and you need to know which kind of grass you have, because that's what depends on how you're going to treat it. You have cool season grasses, warm season grasses, and then evergreen grasses, which aren't really grasses. They're kind of more grass-like. Evergreen grasses, the best example is a carex. A carex looks exactly like a grass, but it's not a grass. And you don't want to cut back carexes because then you're actually like damaging the plant. You can kind of clean it out, go in there and pick out the dead leaves, but you don't actually want to trim it. Now, cool season grasses, they do really well in cooler weather. So for those of you who live more north, cool season grasses are going to be the best types of grasses for you to grow. And then if you live in the south or if you live in hot areas, warm season grasses are going to be the best kind. And there's a lot of people who can grow both. I can grow both in my area because we do get cold during the winter, enough for the cool season grasses to grow, and we still get warm during the summer. So a couple examples of cool season grass are pampas grass, one that I'm really excited to get in my garden, which is called Carl Forster feathery grass, and then fescue is also a cool season grass. Warm season grass, I mean, I'm more familiar with warm season grasses, probably because I live in California, and that is pennisetum, panicums, miscanthus, sweet flags, haconocloa, just to name a few. So let's get started with cutting them back. I have Jason here with me today, and you can see we are all decked out. If you see us wearing these green shirts, these long sleeve green shirts, we're going to work.
We're going to work.
We're going to work hard. And that's something that you have to remember. Grasses are actually like sharp little blades.
Yeah.
And I've worked with them before, and I haven't worn long sleeve, and I've gotten little cuts all over my arm.
And they make you itchy too.
They make you super itchy. So just remember to protect your arms. And then I'm also going to use my long gloves from Women's Work. And you have gloves, right? You like the leather gloves. Yeah. So some really good gloves that are going to protect you. Sometimes, like when I had the monster, the Vertigo pennisetum, I would put actually a hoodie on and tighten the hoodie just to make sure I didn't get any of the grasses on my face. So definitely protect yourself. I know it sounds funny because there's no thorns, but they're like little blades. Yeah. So we're going to get started with cutting back. Because there's two of us, it's going to be easier because one of us can kind of bundle up the grass while the other one cuts it down at the bottom. And you want to cut it about 3 to 6 inches high. The reason why you want to leave a couple inches is because you want to leave a little bit of protection for the roots over the winter. So if you're cutting them back, even if you're cutting them back in the late winter, early spring, it still can get cold. And you want to leave just a little bit of protection. So you can use hedging shears, you can use pruners, you can use, some people will use like weed whackers with the blade on it. That can work really well. We are going to use hedging shears, and then also this fabulous tool that was a gift from my friend. And this thing has just, we have used this. This is like the most used tool.
It's very useful.
It's so useful. So this is an automatic pruner, and it just works really, really well. So Jason will probably use that while I hold it, right? You want to do that? Okay. right, so we've made a complete mess. It's really sad to see it go, but you know, it's time to move on. It is just that time of year to move on. So we ended up cutting back 3 of them. We cut them down to 3 6-inches each. And if you were just going to leave your plants here, you would just leave them looking like that, right? And they would be good all winter long. Or you could do this maybe like in January, late January, and then they'll start getting the new growth from the middle. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to dig it out, and then we're going to divide it. So if you were going to transplant it, you would just dig it out like Jason's doing, try and get as much of the root ball as you possibly can, and then plant it back into another hole right away. You want to make sure that it doesn't dry out before you plant it. You don't want those roots to dry out.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can either replant it immediately, or you can cover it or put that in a little bit of water, like a growler cart with a little bit of water. What we're going to do is we're actually going to divide this. So you can use like a sharp spade, or you can use like a saw, anything that's going to be able to cut through this, which is pretty tough. And you can divide it basically as many times as you want to, as long as you have some roots left over. So what I'm going to do with these size, I'm going to divide it into 4. I'm going to quarter it, and then I'm going to take each chunk, and that is going to be a new plant. So we are going to work on doing that right now, and we'll probably use that same pruner that we've been using. Okay, so we've got that divided up into 4 sections, 4 divisions, and I'm going to go plant these right now so that they don't dry out any more than they already have. And then Jason will keep working on digging out the other root balls, and then we'll cut them up. All right, so Jason is finishing up our last transplants, divisions and transplants. He's watering them in. So you can see I've got 3 over there by Monty. 1, 2, 3, and then I have 3 over here. And just as a reminder, we're going to have the dry creek bed coming down the middle right here. It's going to be small right there, and then as it comes out to the edge, it's going to kind of widen out a little bit. So you can kind of see where it's going to be based on where the compost is. So basically, these 6 fountain grasses are basically going to flank the dry creek bed, and I think that that will be so pretty. It'll be such a gorgeous view right as you drive in through the gate, right as you're pulling up, and hopefully these will take basically, because they were free, right? We could have easily just tossed them since we weren't going to need them in the same spot anymore, but it's so easy just to divide them and transplant them, and they should do really well because they'll have all winter long to kind of get settled in. If you have really cold winters where you have freeze and thaw cycles, sometimes it can push these transplants out of the ground. So just kind of watch them. We don't get freezes like that, so I'm not worried about it. Once they start growing, they're dormant right now. Once they start growing, they're going to be absolutely beautiful, especially with all this nice compost. So we've got all the grasses taken out over in the zigzag planter. I started cutting back the pink cashmere because I am planning to transplant that as well. But Jason and I are kind of tired. So we're thinking about just cleaning up and then continuing the transplanting tomorrow. Because this is, I mean, it's not an easy job. These are huge, huge grasses and it takes a lot to kind of cut them back. So I think we'll clean up and then I'll say we're done for the day. Right? You done?
Yeah, I'm kind of done.
I'm done too. It's tiring. And we still have a ton of cleanup to do. So we still have plenty of work. So that's pretty much it for cutting, dividing, and transplanting your grasses. I think the hardest thing out of all three of those is knowing when to cut back your grasses, because that's the one time that you can really mess it up. If you cut them back at the wrong time, basically too late after the growth has started, then you're going to see those cuts for the rest of the year. So just knowing that you need to cut it back anytime before the new growth happens is really the only thing that you need to take from this video, and that it can be kind of a lot of work. So I hope you all enjoyed this, and I hope you all have a chance to get in your garden today.